Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the director's commentary of the Lazarus expedition. The story so far. The party has arrived in Arcadia, met some people, they're experiencing the Age of Heroes. They're realizing that Arcadia at this moment in time is not a super nice place. There's a lot of banditry. It's sort of a might makes right sort of world. Our party is coming from a much more like organized society where you've got like proper government and classes of people who are all working in harmony, and you have your enemies, but it's sort of like this large regional power versus these other large regional power. And here in Arcadia, it's much more like this person versus this person, or maybe this city on its own. And the power level of everything, or not the power level, but the structure of power dynamics is a lot more individual, and as a result, a lot more stuff happen. A lot more things that you might find unethical because there's no one power to sort of tamp down that sort of thing, or there's no one power to sort of feed these. And there's not like a child killing machine out there, but you could have like rogue murderers running around. So after much conflict and fighting and meeting NPCs, our party arrives, or our party ends up defeating some bandits that are occupying a town, and they're on their way to Bellwind, the next city up the river, and that's where we're gonna pick up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tides of Death, and by which I mean the Lazarus expedition. Jamie, you got me. These mistakes happen. All right. How is everyone doing today?
Doing good.
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Finally.
There's a weird thing that happens in all the D&D campaigns I've ever played for all time, and it's in the pre-show. Everybody is chatting and having a good time and shooting the shit and whatnot. And the moment we go live, I'm like, hey, how's everybody doing? Everyone's dead silent and has no idea how to communicate with each other. I don't know why this is, but it's a thing. It happens across the board. In all campaigns I've played with all people for all time.
All I've been seeing from it
I don't know.
online is it just seems like an engineering game.
We're going to skip ahead a little bit because they're just going to talk about some bullshit that we don't actually care.
Play the Zelda game.
I play to be like blah, 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 blah. Let's pick up where we left off. This is the remnants of the last battle from the last session. Here we go.
So I took +2 intelligence, took the cantrip light, and I learned the spells.
Right, we're going over everyone's level ups here because everyone just hit level 4. Roy gets some new spells. I think most people put, I think Cassian, Mr. Moon's character, is the only one who takes a feat, and everyone else takes like, Steerman gets +2 to wisdom, Vasher gets +2 to charisma, Roy gets +2 to int.
Yeah.
Which is all pretty standard and pretty good. Vasher's choices were a little interesting here because he could go strength for combat, or he could go charisma. I think it's charisma for paladins. Yeah, there you go. He takes +2 charisma. He could have taken +2 strength for better like martial fighting, better to hit and better damage with his weapons, or the charisma for spell casting and saves. And he went with the spell casting and saves and the charisma.
Or do you want to be more charismatic? And not really, like, sometimes someone just needs to reframe an issue for you.
That's it. That's what I do.
It's an interesting choice.
Moo, is your token okay?
Oh yeah,
we got a new token.
I got a new token.
Did we get a zoom on it?
For it, so I'm gonna use it.
Did we get a zoom? No, we don't get a zoom. Go ahead.
A little bit of...
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
So they're just going to recap what goes on over here. On the sheet right now, though, who wants? Let's get the loot. Also gather up, or you can gather up from the pockets of the dead, 194 silver and 54 gold. Someone should put that on their sheet right now, though. Who wants?
I'll grab the gold.
Okay.
194 silver.
194 silver, 54 gold. Right.
Got it.
So here we are. The party is getting their loot from the encounters that they've done. And I made up a little table, a little chart of all the stuff that they're going to get. So And there's the 2 camels of the 2 bandit leaders they fought, plus 2 others that are around, maybe to haul stuff, maybe for prisoners, maybe as backup. I just figured not everybody that was assaulting the town had a camel, but there were probably twice as many as the leaders were using for riding. So we doubled the 2 leaders' camels to 4. Not a problem. Then I counted the enemy dead, and there were 11 melee people, so 11 scimitars. There were 10 missile people, so 10 bows, 10 quivers. And then there was a lot of missile fire. Each quiver holds 20 arrows, but some of those people fired a lot of arrows. And I didn't want to go back and count all the arrows. So I just figured that some of the people near the front had probably fired most of them. Some of the people near the back, the people that were killed more quickly, front of the battle, which is where people fired for a long time, and back of the battle where the missile firers didn't fire that much. So I figured probably they used about half their ammunition, and so I rounded 10 archers with 10 arrows to 100 arrows remaining. There might have been a little more, a little less, but if there was more, maybe some arrows got lost or dropped, or they didn't have full quivers. When they went into this battle, maybe they weren't fully equipped. Maybe some of the locals stole some things, who knows. And if there were fewer arrows, well, party gets a few extra ones, who cares? And then each of the melee minions had a dagger. So they got 21 daggers. I actually, now that I'm looking at this, I think it was 19 melee minions and 2 leaders, and that's where the extra 2 scimitars and 2 daggers comes from. Cool, never mind. Then I just rolled for gold, and added up 194 silver, 54 gold, no copper, and then it became time to decide the other sorts of rewards. The party voluntarily gave back all the money that had been stolen from the town and had been really, really good, really goody two-shoes. And I thought that the town should try to reward these great heroes in the best way that they could. And since the party has given back money, it would feel weird for the party to say, take all your gold back. And then the town would be like, well, here's a portion of our gold. That just didn't feel right for me. So instead, I thought about what sorts of things they might have around. What sorts of things would be nice commodities to have. And I didn't want to do some of the ordinary things. I wanted to pull from something that might be a little more accurate historically. And I had recently gone through and read the Iliad, and this is taking place in sort of a Bronze Age style world. The Iliad takes place in a Bronze Age style world. And so I took the brass tripods. Actually, I think in the Iliad they were copper, but we're using brass anyway. And a tripod in this sense is like a 3-legged stool with a spot on top to put a big brass bowl as a cauldron. And this was a thing back in the day. Back in the Bronze Age, this was a display of wealth and power, and it was a treasure, and it was a reward, and it was probably hard to make. Copper is it's pretty easy to bend. I think it was highly decorated. And you and I might be what, you got a stool to hold your cauldron over the fire? That's a great gift. But once upon a time, if you read the Iliad, people are talking about passing out copper tripods as gifts given for winning games or for saving people, or as treasure or bounty or bribes or whatnot. That's how the world was once upon a time. So we're stealing that idea. The other thing that they're giving out is fine blankets. And I think blankets or carpets or rugs, that sort of thing, back in the once upon a time, these were hand woven on looms, and a fine blanket was actually worth quite a lot. Nowadays, you get these mass-produced blankets. We don't really care. You need a blanket every now and then. You get a cool one, but a fine hand woven blanket or 8 fine hand woven blankets is a pretty cool treasure. And I think I priced it appropriately. Maybe not. I priced each of them at 5 gold. That might actually be a little low. The brass tripods I priced at 50 gold, but they're 10 pounds, and so 10 pounds is 500 copper, which is 5 gold. So just the metal alone is worth 5 gold, and then I increased the price tenfold for the, artistry and the crafting and whatnot. So that's how we get our brass tripods. That's how we get our fine blankets. Also, healing potions you know, we're in the Age of Heroes. Healing potions are around. They're actually available for sale in towns. We've already had an encounter where someone was trying to like sell some shady healing potions. I wanted to underscore that like healing potions are a legit thing that are around and you can get them and people have them, and they're much more common than they have been in other campaigns. And so the town's probably got some healing potions lying around. That's a great treasure to give out to the players. The players can sell them. The players can use them. Whatever they want to do. Fantastic. The last gifts were going to be incense and spices. And I struggled to figure out how you would price incense and spices. And I thought and did some math and tried to look up, you know, the price of incense in 1800 or, you know, 1500, the price of spices. And what did the the East India Trading Company sell their good? And I just tried to find historical prices, and I was not coming up with anything, and I wasn't coming up with anything, and it's kind of hard because spices is so broad and incense is so broad, and how do you compare prices historically to the modern? And then some article I was reading was like, yes, and the pepper they brought back was worth more than its weight in gold. And that like, oh my God, that's perfect. So if we just want to say that like 1 pound of spices is worth its weight in gold, literally its weight in gold, and we know what a pound of gold is worth, 50 GP, then we can just say a pound of incense is worth its weight in gold. So a pound of incense is 50 GP, and a pound of spices is not quite worth its weight in gold because, you know, they're produced more locally. You know, England didn't have shit in the way of spices. That's why they're paying more than the spices weight in gold, because all they eat up there is cabbage, you know, back before modern times. And so in this area, spices are actually quite a bit more common. They're actually more grown in this area. So not its weight in gold, but maybe half its weight in gold. And so we price the incense at 50 GP per pound and the spices at 25 GP per pound. And then I just added it up and divided by 2, because if you mass sell this stuff, then I not including the healing potions, if you mass sell this stuff, which I expected the party to do, then you're only getting about half price. And they ended up with 107 gold from those things, plus 410 gold from the loot of selling camels, scimitars, bows, quivers, arrows, blah 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 blah, plus some GP and SP, blah 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 blah. And so I think the total value of all of this stuff, if sold in bulk, was 517 gold, which is pretty good. You know, it's not terrible, it's not amazing. It's enough to buy a breastplate. It's enough to buy a couple of suits of scale mail. It's enough to re-outfit the party with pretty much whatever they need. You can also keep the camels instead of selling them. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, this was my approach at getting a more interesting form of loot than you save the town, here's 50 gold, or you save the town, here's 500 gold cash. It's essentially cash, but we get to break it up into something a little bit more flavorful. And that is nice sometimes. And now that I've done the work to figure out, you know, prices for incense and spices, that labor, even if it takes like an hour to figure out how to make 500 gold more interesting than 500 gold, that labor helps future reward systems. And so next time they get rewarded with something, I'll already have done the legwork and you can be like, oh yeah, you get 10 pounds of spices, you get 3 pounds of incense, and I can really quickly convert. But it was an inefficient use of time up front.
What do you want? Intimidation, charisma?
Well, are you going to try to intimidate them or persuade them?
I'm going to try.
I have no idea what's happening. Regardless of how you may phrase it, seem to still think that it's a good system that we've had for a long time. Right. So Vasher here, who saved the city, they've gotten their rewards, and he's saying, hey, since I saved your city and all, why don't you conform to my system of morality and free all your slaves? And the NPCs are resistant. And it built this, you know, this desert town, and so who are you to say otherwise? Fine. And this is that one of the central themes that I am playing with in this campaign, that, you know, it's my game that I'm playing more or less with myself and somewhat with the players, and it's my own like thought exercises, is how do you survive, live, function in a world that you strongly disagree with? And I think on some level, that's relatable to everyone, where you might live in a place where you think something should be legal and it is illegal, or you think something should be illegal but it is legal, and how do you function in a society where you don't agree with the laws of the land? And our players are in that situation, but it was just amplified 100-fold, where our players think that many of the ordinary systems of the land are awful and shouldn't exist. And all the locals are like, no, this is actually completely normal. This stuff is good. This is how we live. This is how we've always lived. And we don't want to change the functioning systems of the world. And then we get to see the players walking through this area being like, I disagree with how the world works. And then see how they manage that, which is tough. Which is really tough. And so here we see Vasher trying to navigate in a world he completely disagrees with and tries to get people to change their mind to see his point of view. But you can't just convince people to give up their way. You can't convince people to give up their culture, even if their culture is something, you think is pretty reprehensible.
Can I make an appeal to the nobles to at least free one slave each?
There are no nobles in this town. This is a podunk backwater village.
Or, the slave-owning class.
Oh, yes. Okay. Here's the question. Can this person live in this town? So he gets some people to free some of their slaves. And this is that same sort of concept that we're working with earlier, and we did a little bit with Plax, and we're doing it again with this person, is that when you see something that you disagree with, but it's like built deeply into the system, it's hard to just change that one thing. You can't just be like, well, slavery's bad, let's just free these people and then bounce, because they still have to exist in the system. That effect kind of carries on. If they aren't accepted in their town or village, now they're just refugees. Free refugees, but they might just die in the desert. So if you're going to alter the system, you're going to have to like dig in deep and see that your changes are following through, or that your changes don't just cause more problems. If you free some slaves and then they die in the desert, what was that a good decision in the end? Maybe not. Probably pretty bad to die in the desert. Sounds pretty awful. And so we're going to see Vasher having to contend a little bit with it's not just so easy as correcting the surface level details. These problems run deep. Afterwards, which is not really the point of the campaign, but we throw in a little bit every now and then just to be like, hey, systems are complex. You can't just fix it. Let's not focus on it, but let's remember these issues are deep-seated. Can you persuade this town systemic to allow in nature. This person to transition from owned person in the village to free person in the village? Can you make me a persuasion check of 14 or higher to grant them some food and a room and space to exist in this town?
Well, Vasher.
There's probably going to be empty houses, right? A few people were killed.
Oh, a lot of people were killed. Yeah, there's some empty houses.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's you should free some slaves to repopulate the town.
Not a bad idea. What? There are empty houses. Why don't you lower that DC on the persuasion check to 12?
You know what? They're probably greedy and they want those houses for themselves. Let's go for a 13 or higher.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Well done. Good job, Vasher. All right, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit. Blah 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 blah. Fighting temperament, switching tails. Blah blah blah.
We're gonna find anything.
Blah 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 blah. We're gonna skip ahead until they get to Bellwind.
We're using them to summon.
The party can head off now. I will do so. Where's Bellwind?
I'll give her gold for the courier and then head off.
Okay.
Cassian will get down on one knee, kind of grab her hand and plead with her. Please ask the other village what they've seen. And then...
Right. Okay. Blah blah blah. The bells in their towers. And okay. So as we're coming into Bellwind, oops, that's not what
Vasher will like do this with his ear. I thought you were saying Bellend.
I've got some things set up. when they come to Bellwind. This is supposed to be the bit of a respite from lots of fighting and lots of combat, and like, let's check out some other parts of the, let's do a little bit of role playing again. We just had a big combat session. Bellwind's a big city. Let's see what's going on here. So we've got Saffron Shadowwalker, who has shown up ahead of time and sort of, she's been chilling in town for a week. So she is going to talk to the locals, sort of spread some word. The party's supposed to be coming with loot. In the Age of Heroes, these tales get told. Saffron's going to tell her version of the story before the party gets there, which is going to make her look like a much bigger part. She showed up at the very end and killed like 2 people. And then at the very end of the battle, but the way she's going to tell the story is going to make her look pretty great. We've seen she's a bit of a con artist. And then the party can show up and deal with the repercussions of her getting there first and telling her version of the story. The other thing that we're going to run into here is their old nemesis. Drakthar Plainbane is here hanging out in the city, and this will be the focus of much of this session. And Drakthar is safe in this city. You, as we've seen in the other towns, you're not really supposed to fight anyone in the town. The town power is really small. And when I say it's small, I mean like its area of influence is pretty tiny. The law enforcement, it's kind of a stretch, for the town can really only extend to its borders. The power to enforce things outside of the town is weak. You can't keep an eye on all the things outside of the town. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to try and enforce the town's laws outside of the town. You've got your the territorial jurisdiction. There's a better term for that I can't think of right now. And it extends at a certain point, kind of like in the modern world. If you are a Canadian and you're in Canada, and you kill another Canadian, and then you hop the border to the United States can't prosecute you for murder for the crime you committed in Canada. That's why we have extradition treaties. That's why the Canadians can be like, hey, we want this criminal, and the US can be like, oh, cool, we'll just give you this person back so you can, do this stuff. But the United States could not prosecute you for a murder that happened in Canada because the United States doesn't have any jurisdiction over what's happening in Canada. Similarly, these towns have jurisdiction over what happens within their walls, but what happens outside of the walls is beyond their jurisdiction. And the way that these towns have survived and thrived in this area is by saying, we're going to deal with just this stuff, and we're not going to worry. We understand there's murder. We understand there's killing. There's all sorts of stuff going on, but the town is focused on the town. We're going to be focused on the trading of goods within the town. We're going to make our money and our prosperity by what's happening within these borders, and we just don't care about what happens beyond. And this is pretty, how do we say? This is not that different from how the real world works. It's just that the borders are much, much smaller and much more clearly delineated. You don't really have extradition treaties between towns, and the town's power never reaches beyond their walls. But it's kind of the same that you have in the modern world, and in the world 500 years ago and 1,000 years ago, and blah, 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 blah. But with its borders being so much smaller, it really feels different, where you can just stand outside of the walls and wait for someone to come out so you can murder them. And everyone on the side can be like, yeah, he's going to do that. I think the difference is that you've got like zones of law and then zones of lawlessness in between. And in the modern world, it's like zone of law goes all the way up to Canada in the north and Mexico in the south. And there's no lawless zone in between there, except for like the Western Sahara and like a few other minor places in the world. All the land is pretty much owned by, countries, except for also Antarctica. But that's a different story altogether. Anyway, so this puts us in a weird position where the party is in town. They've got their enemy who has done terrible things, but the party can't do anything about it. If the party attacks this person, if the party fights this person, if the party kills this person, if the party mugs this person, does anything against their person, the party will be in breach of law, and the party will be murderers or killers or thieves or whatever, and face the ridiculous punishments of the land and the time. And it's supposed to put the party in an odd situation where you have to coexist with your enemy, and we'll see what they do.
Wow. Talk about lowering the tone. Someone's there trying to jack off camels.
What?
Bells on the wind.
Absolutely. Oops. Here we go. Bellwind, 100%. Well, actually, you're headed upriver right now, and the wind is kind of going with you. You'll hear the bells, but the wind is to your back.
How beautiful are the bells?
You know, you're
Depends
from
on the camel.
Nick. It's a good question about Mr. Moon. You know, casual question. How nice are the bells here? And the really easy answer would be like, oh, it's known for its bells. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. You can see them from the ground. You can see the light reflecting off of them. Like, that would be the really easy answer. But we go with a different answer. We go with the sort of, you're actually from a more advanced area that has better industry, and you're more familiar with bells, and these bells are, great, but they're not fantastic.
Okay, don't
rub it in. There's not really any reason to do this other than to kind of remind the PCs that, how do we say?
really good.
Pause this from. The reason to say this town that's named for its famous bells doesn't have, particularly nice bells is to continue to draw that contrast between our homeland and the new place. And this place is famous for its bells, but you come from a much more organized, much more industrial, much more with it and together society. And so your bells are nicer. It's a minor point, but I'm just trying to continually underscore like differences of societies and styles and
that really good food
life
all the time. And then you travel so good. So
skip.
To the south is riverless. To the north is. From the outskirts of Bellwind, you can also see the Three Sisters. They are called this. They are three large volcanoes called this because they, just talking about the local topography. I didn't have names from at the time, but now we have names. I'd have to open a map to find them, though. You can occasionally see some boiling down their sides. Right now, there's just a little bit of smoke rising from the middle one. But as you'll find out when you're in Bellwind and as you're talking to people, that, they're active volcanoes in temperamental stages. But we're going to skip. A chance to get too far in. You are greeted by none other than Saffron. This is when they're just walking into the town. Shadow Walker, and a small cluster of people who let out a large cheer on your behalf, and Saffron is over there applauding. Right, so they show up. Saffron's already told the story, and she is like wanting her money and her share of the loot. So she's down by the front. She's got some people with her, and when the party comes in, they're all going to be talking about it. They're all going to be clustering, and we got a couple of purposes. This is all Saffron. Well, okay, there's two purposes for doing this. One, Age of Heroes, trying to make the party into heroes, trying to grow their reputation, trying to make them feel like, hey, if we do big influential things, people will fawn all over us, right? We're always trying to underscore that. The second thing we're trying to do here is give Saffron some credit. Give her some, maybe not credit, but we're trying to play her character. And her character is about, improving her own standing. And if she can make a big deal about this battle happening and then show up at the front and everyone gets even more excited, like, oh, hey, look, all these other heroes are here. This is helping improve Saffron's image. And it's also ensuring that she gets paid. Because if she's in town and the party rolls up and then the party's like, screw you, we're not going to pay you after all, there's not much that she can do. Like, she could try to steal some stuff, but she doesn't know what loot they're getting. And that could kind of put her at odds with these people who she might want to travel with. But it's easier than being in a confrontation with the party is giving them so much, fame and adoration and credit and raising their visibility that if they failed to pay her, she could, take all that away from them. If she builds up these people in the eyes of if she builds up the party in the eyes of the locals, and says, they've done all these great things with me, and they're bringing my treasure to me. And then the party shows up and was like, fuck you, Saffron, we're not going to give you anything. Then the people in town can be like, what the hell was wrong with these wayfarers, with these waystars? They're so dumb. They're not paying their debts. They're not honoring their other people, right? So by having an audience greet the party, it puts the party in a slightly awkward social spot of like, we can't screw Saffron. Not that they were expecting to, but the NPCs all have their own motivations and they all have their own reasons for doing things. And so Saffron bringing people to praise the party serves my needs as a DM to remind them that they're heroes, but it mostly serves Saffron needs of elevating her status and providing a little bit of security that the party's not going to try and screw her over. Mother's in a hotel.
And I'm like, please, people, we've just walked through the gate. Let us at least get our bearings in these.
So the party's going to try and get their bearings, more or less. From Ty.
Well, I haven't met one myself.
People talk to Roy. Roy's super excited. You know, a woman named Ashwia, the river keeper. We're introducing the party slightly to the leader of power here. Ashwia, the river keeper. I spent a whole bunch of time building this person's character sheet and working on all the things in the river and who she is and what her powers are. We spent many, many hours, I think, on stream sorting out the Sahuagin in the river and Ashwia's gear and how her relation with these people is. And she's pretty tough. She's like a CR8 character. I think she's a paladin with the glaive. And yeah. She's got 3rd level spells. She's pretty baller. I don't actually think she's going to end up showing up in the campaign at all. I think the path the campaign is taking means that this NPC, who's like the lead power broker in town, but like isn't trying to be involved in town politics, is more like the protector of the town, is more like the defender of the town. You know how some cities are like, you know, this is the city of Athena. Athena watches over this town. Ashwia is sort of the spiritual protector of the town. Like, she could run the place and collect taxes, but she doesn't. She lives as an ordinary person in town and just like defends it from other things. Primarily, all those things are on the river, and she's not really getting involved in like law enforcement and town politics, but she could if she needs to. And after putting all this time and effort into Ashwia, the river keeper, I really don't know if she's going to show up. Maybe she might show up a little bit. But yeah.
The liquid in the healing potion.
Blue?
Do I have a feeling it's the same color as the one that we got before?
From Saffron?
By Saffron? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So Mr. Moon here is thinking that maybe these potions are fake. Maybe these potions are potions that Saffron sold the town and are fake, and the town gave back to him, and he's not sure if they're real or not. So he's gonna give them to Saffron as like her share of the loot, which is so clever.
Amazing.
So
What if they actually work?
But the truth is they're ordinary healing potions, and so Saffron just gets a free healing potion.
Good idea.
She doesn't, however, get her fair share of the loot.
right.
Things intervene, and before the party can sell off the loot and give her her share, things will happen. We'll get to that in a minute.
I leave my camel at the end, Neal, and then go find a temple.
Okay.
What did the identify come out as?
Skip. Okay.
Wait, is he sitting there with?
Here we go.
What?
In make everything fit. And as you step in, you can see that there's none other than Drakthar Plainbane hanging out
What?
in the tavern.
Oh shit. Roy instantly
I rolled
freezes
into
up.
initiative.
Okay.
Wait, is he sitting there with?
Now, right here, this is going to take some delicate work. Okay? Because as we can see, Vasher is immediately rolling into it. Drakthar's a monster. Drakthar's evil. The party hates Drakthar, has so many good reasons to hate her, and has every good reason to try and destroy her. However, the party's in a town where you can't fight people or kill people, even if they just murdered your brother outside the city walls. You can't kill them in the city walls. If they kill your brother in the city walls, maybe it's a little bit different. But if they've murdered your brother outside the city walls and then you meet them in the bar, you just have to be at peace with them. And that's the law of the land, and it's the custom of the land, and everyone here is used to it. The party's not used to it. And if the party just bursts into a fight, it's sort of game over. Not entirely, but like the Popo are going to come down on them. They're gonna, lose the goodwill of the people. They're gonna get a bad reputation. It doesn't help them to pick a fight right here. And so we're gonna have to do a little bit of delicate, like, you are totally in control of your characters, but I want you to remember and feel the pressures that are really stopping you from doing this. And also, let's recognize that you don't have to solve this problem right now.
With his tentacle out.
Yeah, he's just sitting at the bow. Actually, his back is to you. He's sitting there with his tentacle out, just chilling, having a drink at the bar. You roll into initiative. Okay.
What would this be like?
Thank God he rolls a 1.
To not attack him, because I think Cassian's first instinct would be like pure rage.
I'd scream murderer and draw my sword.
No, I think
attack him.
Cassian would actually go for it too. I actually think he would. I'm gonna roll in.
Oh, thank God they're all rolling low.
Okay.
Roy will be like, there's other people in the tavern, right?
There's a bunch of other people. It's a very crowded area. I'm just not going to place 100,000 tokens.
Yeah.
Oh,
Roy's
they all
like,
roll so
"Look
low.
out, everyone!
Wait, no, it's just Cassian
He's
again.
a child murderer.
Well,
Yeah, I
let's see.
scream murderer at the top of my lungs, draw my weapon, and charge him.
Yeah, I guess you scream murderer, and everyone sort of looks to you. You draw your weapons. People begin to move back to the sides. Drakthar will, look around at you, and I guess he'll
There you
roll
go,
into
Roy.
initiative too. All right, so here, this is so nice. Drakthar wins initiative by far. Doesn't matter by how much, but they do win initiative, and the party all loses initiative. This allows us. I'm so glad it worked out this way. This allows us to play the best card. Ooh, Vasher, natural 1 on the initiative
Is
roll.
bad. I feel like I should get a surprise.
Well, you called murderer. I think it's and there's people in the way. I think it's definitely everyone rolls in at the same time.
Can I at least move adjacent to him as I yelled it?
No, there's crowd in the way. Sorry, buddy. Natural 1 on the initiative. Maybe you drop your sword and you have to pick it back up or something. It's a slow situation. All right. Well, Drakthar goes first, and Drakthar will clearly raise one hand and one tentacle and say, good people of Bellwind, these people, they're going to kill me. That's our perfect card. Drakthar leans on the laws of the town, doesn't start violence, and calls on the people to protect her. Now, this makes this is great. I'm so glad that Drakthar won here, because now instantly the situation becomes intruders and invaders with weapons who are trying to start a fight versus the normal lawful people of the town. And the party has gone from being possibly righteous in their murders and killing to on the outside, viewed as aggressors, viewed as the terrorists, or however you want to call them. And you will see the ire of everyone in the town. You were just warned about violence and how, don't kill anyone in town, otherwise the penalty is death. And Drakthar will stand there with her hands raised, and Cassian will take a turn.
It's fine for me. Cassian is gonna, instead of attacking him, he sees what he's up to. He's gonna hold Vasher back and whisper to him, "It's not the time. Look at the people. Look at their eyes."
Good job,
Roy,
Mr.
do a
Newton.
strength
Well
check?
done.
I will strength check him.
Well, okay. On your turn, though, Vasher.
On your turn. Yep.
Roy,
Sure.
what are you gonna do?
I will raise a hand and point at him. And on my raised hand sits Vika. And I will simply yell out, "Freeze, child murderer! We'll bring you justice."
Roy's so
that's it.
good.
That's my turn.
Excellent. Basher, give me opposed strength checks against Cassian.
See, that's why you should have took the strength, man.
I should have taken the strength.
Yeah, Cassian
This is
holds
great. This is great, right? We see these rules here. We see that Cassian is holding Vasher back. Every round that violence does not occur only strengthens Drakthar's position. If the party is able to start violence right now, then, well, a fight's just going to break out. But every round that the bloodshed actually gets delayed makes it harder and harder for the people to engage Drakthar, for the party to engage Drakthar, and more easy for the other people in the in the bar to like see what's going on, right? Because 6 seconds rounds are pretty short. If you're having a drink or having some food and all of a sudden you hear some commotion from the other side of the bar, and then by the time you get up to see what's going on, there's like hand-to-hand combat, well, you're probably not going to get involved. But if you stand up and you see this commotion and there's a group of people like waving swords and one guy holding another back and someone being like, help me, you might have time to get up and like throw a cup or shout or jeer or somehow interject yourself into the situation. It allows us to de-escalate the problem, which gives us all a lot of fun and playability. You back. Steermere?
Okay, wait, is that...
Oh,
wait,
go ahead.
can I talk on my turn?
Sure.
If Cassian's holding me back, I'll say call whatever, like, police would have been called in Ireland, like justice, call justice stars, or call the guard. This man's a murderer. He killed children.
Okay. Steermere.
That's
And
what I do
I'm
on- that's what I do on my
wait,
turn.
can I make like a persuasion check on my plea
To call the guards that this person's a murderer?
to the crowd? Yeah.
Oh, well, their guards are already being called. People have drawn weapons and violence. So we're going to move forward, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to skip a little bit. Although double failure on the persuasion checks is also just a beautiful, beautiful thing. You know, they're trying to convince the people to get after Drakthar, but with 2 natural ones and the party being the people to draw the weapons, like the party was clearly on the bad side. This is an important moment to remember. The party drawing the weapons and then double natural ones on their persuasion checks. We should come back to this later if I can remember to do so, which the reason I want to come back to it is I forgot to come back to it. It'll make sense in a little bit. So we're going to skip.
Monstrous beast.
Steermere is going around to try and like get up front and talk to Drakthar, but he's not like, you know, running over to murder him. He's making his way through the crowd in the classic perfect Nick way of doing things, where he's not, I'm attacking Drakthar, he's, I walk to Drakthar. I'm just going to close the gap and then we'll deal with what happens when we get there. And we're not gonna telegraph our moves. We're gonna go normally, and it's perfect.
Beast.
All right, skip. Hostile.
Single person here is a slaver, a despot, a power, like.
All right, we're just gonna skip ahead quite a bit. So the party is not in a great spot. The violence has died down, the weapons have been stowed, but we do see Steermere face to face with Drakthar. Just to muscle your way through. There's some people who are gotten in the way. There's some people throwing cups at the party, tossing food at them. You can see the combat music has changed from like we're in a fight to like you're just in a tavern and maybe there's a tavern brawl. Yeah, not a problem. You shove these people out of your way. You just right up to Drakthar, who's still got hand and tentacle in air.
Drakthar, submit yourself. Let us be interrogated by the guards and we'll see the truth of this.
Fuck off! Why would Drakthar let herself be interrogated? She's done nothing wrong. She's abiding by the laws of the land. Here, imagine just hanging out in a tavern, and you might have done some terrible things, but you can't be. You're safe. And some dude's like, "You come with me. I'm gonna have the police interrogate." You don't have to. You just tell them to fuck off. Maybe even turn around and go back to your food. I haven't broken the laws of this town.
Oh,
I'm gonna let him go if that's fine.
Yeah.
If it's
that
my
might
turn.
be true.
And I'm gonna push up.
Sure.
You've broken the laws of morality. You've broken the laws of every land.
I don't know if you want a strength check or an athletics check.
Yeah, I would like a DC 10 athletics check to push through the crowd.
Oof. Ooh, bad
Yeah, some people
Cassian.
get up.
What if
Need
the work of that? He's never
Skip.
flashed in your direction, that this isn't going to go down. And you can see that, you know, the innkeeper, half orc, is coming out from behind to take care of what's going on over here. So there's some folks. The fight is kind of dying down. Guards have been called. Innkeeper's showing up to solve this. The crowd has turned hostile towards the party. They're even blocking Cassian from getting forward. They tried to get in Steermir's way. It's not going super great here. And in a little bit, we're going to see the bartender come on up. Cassian gets in the way, and we're going to see the town guard show up and bring everybody outside, where we're going to have a nice little chat outside. You can go. Bye.
they killed children attacked.
Is at you again? It's not just the one person. You shove through the crowd. We need some guards to handle this. Five
Guards. Here we go.
Drakthar, who's, you know, still people, what's going on? They quickly get the lay of the land, and they ask the 5 of you to step outside. And Drakthar, who's, you know, still being accosted, handheld by the cleric.
Hang on. I've got my hands on him. Yeah, I'm not going without him.
Oh yeah, Drakthar's coming. Totally.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. Everyone comes on. They poke someone's nose. They say, looking at cat. All right. So now we get our guards here, and the guards are gonna figure out what's going on. And pretty quickly, the party says this guy's done terrible, terrible things. And Drakthar says, "Well, I didn't do those things in the city." And the guards look at the party, and they're like, "Well, what are you gonna do about it?" I'm skipping over a lot here. And this right here. This right here is the moment we hoped for, and the rolls came out in our direction. The party did bad on their persuasion checks. They got bad on they rolled poorly on initiative, so Drakthar could go first and sort of say, "Hey, I'm not trying to fight anybody. I'm a peaceful person." Everything has gone perfectly. Now, the one thing that is really a problem is that towards the end of this conversation, Vasher's going to go off with one of these guards and like try to convince somebody of, you know, that he should be allowed to murder Drakthar, or at least kick Drakthar out of the city so they can murder him. And the rest of the party is just like told to be cool and don't do anything. The problem is I forgot about the double ones on the persuasion checks, and we allow the party back in the tavern. And it sort of works because, you know, they're just lawful people here. But with the double ones on the persuasion checks and the drawing of weapons in the tavern, I think the right move to have made would be for the half-orc tavern keeper to say, "Get the hell out of my bar, get the hell out of my inn. You're troublemakers, and I don't want your kind here. Leave this good citizen, Drakthar, to their stuff and get the hell out." But we're so excited. Everything's going according to plan. They've got some cool interactions. I kind of want a scene where they like have to just sit in the same room as Drakthar and look at them. And I'm so eager for this like awkwardness of them being in the same room and unable to do anything about it that I forget and I gloss over the fact that they should probably be barred from the tavern. It's a bummer.
I'll speak.
I'm gonna skip ahead again.
I think we need to roll initiative. Oh, right. And there's almost a fight here with the tavern guards.
Hey.
I think we got to set up the battle. If we're going to do this.
Let's go back just a bit.
You can arrest me after they're dead, and I turn and pull my sword instead of attacking Drakthar.
Right. Vasher goes to violence. He calls for an attack on Drakthar right in front of the town guard.
Holy shit.
Wait. Hold on. If we're going to do this, we're going to take our break, and then we're going to come back in initiative order if we're going to be attacking people in this, because
we need guard tokens and stuff.
We're at a break time anyway. It's been like an hour and 7 minutes of gameplay. We got to build a quick battle map. Conveniently, also, when we have breaks or when we allow people to sit with their feelings for a few extra seconds, clarity does arrive. And so sometimes, this is one of the nice things about streaming your games, is that if it feels like things are going out of hand and you think the party is making a bad decision, You can always call for a break. And that doesn't stop them from making that bad decision, but it gives them some extra time to reassess whether or not they want to make that bad decision. And it's not so much like a don't do this party. It's more of like a think about it for a minute. And if it's a bad decision, they won't make it. Fingers crossed. Sometimes they do anyway. That'll be, I got to set up the battlefield. Yeah. We'll be back on the other side as the party once again loses the game. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I think we need to roll initiative at this point in time.
Hey, hang on, wait. Am I actually there? I was next to Drakthar now.
We're on the verge of rolling initiative.
We were next to Drakthar because I was going to grab.
Yeah, well, everyone kind of came out of the bar and got pushed around, and everyone was okay. Then I think we've got a situation like guards coming out of here. Guards trying to like keep everybody together. These just to separate it from the guards. I'm gonna put it
make him red
here.
Okay.
All right.
I'll give the guards a warning. I say, if you defend this person, I will consider you culpable for their crimes, and I will not hold back.
We're No, never mind. Defending the laws of this town. We haven't even conducted an investigation. Stand down, foreigner.
Will you call the clerics to find the truth?
Obviously. What the fuck do you think we're doing here?
Okay, at that, Vasher will like start to back down, and he'll say,
roll into combat. Vasher's up first, second, third, actually. Luckily, we allow some out of combat conversation as weapons are being drawn, and it quickly diffuses itself, thankfully. Because fighting right here will be bad. Drakthar could just run away. The guards would fight the party. The party would wipe the floor with these guards, no problem. But then they'd be in a city where there's soldiers and, there's people watching, and it would be a mess, right? The party would probably get locked down pretty fast, and, or at least, the death of the guards would alert folks. It's in the streets. It's highly visible. It'd be a bad time. It'd be a real bad time. Initiative order. Did you want to do something?
I just wanted to remind Vasher of the story of Prince Reginald that I told him once. And I've told him this before on a walk through the desert. And it was a story in which Prince Reginald knew there was an evil witch in the land. Leave him.
The story that he's telling is basically like, you don't have to solve your problems today. And this is a great point. And this is one of the things that I was really hoping to get out of all of these encounters in this area, is that just because you have a problem before you doesn't mean you immediately need to resolve it. Drakthar is here in this town. You want to kill Drakthar, you don't have to do it right now. You could wait. You could wait till Drakthar leaves. You could follow Drakthar around publicly. You could follow him around privately. You could just station one person outside of each of the entrances and wait for them to leave. There's a million things you could do about this. There's so much that can be done. Why don't we just take our time to solve these problems? Which is hard. A lot of us see a problem before us and we try and just fix it immediately. And this is really what I'm hoping for, is to get the party in a spot where they have to live with Drakthar and hear what Drakthar has to say. And I want to present Drakthar as in this town proselytizing and saying, hey folks, come join my cause, while the party just has to like be there and be like, oh my god, Drakthar is actively recruiting and I can't do anything about it. Ugh, these spear wielding folks. People will get them sitting in their hair. Right, we're gonna skip ahead. You will skip well ahead. You're free to follow someone from place to place, but you can't break into private property. They're asking what you can do around the town. This guy's a monster. What can we do about it? And the guard's like, you can't do anything about it. But hey, if you want to follow a person, that's not against the law, right? Can't break into their shit. You can't steal their shit. You can't kill them. But like, we're not going to stop you from walking around the town. We can't. You're going to do your own thing. That's fine. And that's sort of speaking to a little bit that like there aren't that many guards, and they're really only focused on the high priority things. I think in the real world, stalking is a crime, or at least the cops will stop you. Here, we're only really concerned about violence and property destruction. Or like interference in commerce. The town's got to make their money somehow. And so we're just going to move on for a little bit here. World, religion, and politics. Let's back up a bit. That's how she returned. Or maybe they're just pulling money out of thin air. Sort of. Back. This is talking to Saffron here.
Most of the cut. I mean, I'll handle things that
Gotcha.
are off.
Okay. Skip. Here we go.
If you put any ounce of faith in us, you can understand that this thing has to be dealt with. All we gotta do is get out of the town. I suspect that you're someone with light fingers. No judgment on my end. Perhaps if Drakthar ran out of gold coins, he wouldn't be able to stay around in town much longer.
This right here is a brilliant strategy. Steal all Drakthar's money. You're not supposed to do it, but if if no one can see it, if you can get away with it, it's a little easier to get away with theft than it is to get away with murder. You steal all of Drakthar's money, you can't stay at the inn. She can't stay at the inn. She's going to have to do something, right? Brilliant plan. I love it. Oh my god, how could you accuse me of such things?
I just got an instinct.
Well, that's an idea. What they were saying? Recruiting people, running a school of some kind, sacrificial rituals. That takes a lot of money. That takes a lot of resources. I bet this Drakthar person has some sort of financial backer or some sort of resource that they're able to sell. So here we are trying to be like, hey, this Drakthar thing, maybe it's a bigger puzzle. Maybe there's more going on here than you realize. Maybe killing Drakthar isn't the thing that you need to do right now. There might be a whole organization dedicated to this sort of thing. There might be a lot of money invested. If you just kill Drakthar, you lose all your leads. What if you rob Drakthar's money and then follow them back to their lair or to their employer or their funder or their resource manager or whoever, follow back to their other sources of power, and then you can destroy the whole organization rather than just, fighting Drakthar here and now. That's sort of what we're implying or trying to implant in the party's brain. Or maybe they're just pulling money out of thin air. Somewhere they've got a good supply of cash. You can't run, a sacrificial ritual pit on just hopes and dreams. That takes logistics. That takes setup.
True. But we chased it out of its last home. So I suspect any wealth that it has, it's got on it right now, or at least in its room wherever it's staying.
Maybe. I mean, I've been here for a week longer than you, and I've seen them about. The way that they're actively recruiting. They talk as if there is they don't sound like a defeated person, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Well,
they might have more than one location.
Maybe we can find someone in town working for us, cozy up to Drakthar away from us, get invited to such a place.
Great plan.
Then we can track them down to their
great plan.
Next home.
Great plan. Love it. Fantastic plan. Well, you got an enemy? Figure out what's going on. Learn about your enemy, and then you can destroy them. Or you can just fight them in the middle of town. Or you could learn about what's going on, find out what the true problem is, and solve the true problem rather than like whatever symptoms you're butting up against. I'll see what I can do about relieving Drakthar of any immorally gotten gains is really the gist of it. Is that if they've done this, don't you?
Really unload on him.
That's really great. Well done between Greenzerg and Saffron there.
I want to start telling Drakthar a few stories, actually, in a lot of detail. I want to...
Greenzerg's approach is, well, maybe let's steal their shit. Let's find out a little bit about them. Pokemon Challenge's approach to Drakthar is, I'm just going to annoy them. I'm just going to annoy the ever-living shit out of them. And I love that approach as well, because if you can just piss Drakthar off enough that they do something stupid, you can take advantage of that. And I don't know if that's Pokemon Challenge's goal right here, but just annoying somebody to the point that they make a mistake. Oh, what a good plan. What a great plan. And even if it doesn't work, it's just fun. You just get to fuck with an NPC that you really, really hate. And the worst case scenario for you is that you just annoy the shit out of them. And the best case scenario is that they screw up and they present a weakness or a moment of opportunity. Maybe they attack you first and then you get to kill them in self-defense. Or maybe they take off out of town because they're so annoyed. Or maybe they go to a safe house and then you get to know who Drakthar's working with. Whatever it is, you can't go wrong just by annoying your enemies to death.
Really unload on him, you know? Just like every single, just the slowest motherfucking stories this guy has ever heard in his life.
Lower. That should be an 11 on a charisma check. So they're going to tell you some interesting stories and give me your own charisma check to see if you can, keep the focus on your stories instead, which you do.
Not.
And shut the door and
Just
in the door
over
So,
here.
They annoy
and as
Drakthar
into Drakthar's room, which is great. Now we've gained a little bit of intelligence. We know where Drakthar's staying. We know where their room is. Good job, Pokemon Challenges. You're making progress. They go in and you like put your foot in the door. Drakthar pulls it. This is my room. I have the right to privacy in here. Leave me be.
I look around.
Yeah, there's folks in the
bar's
bar.
full,
There's people seeing it. It's a pretty busy place.
With my foot in the door, I push my head in and I look. Are there any windows?
There are no windows.
Okay, I put my foot out of the door.
Okay. They go into the room and shut the door behind them. Windowless. There's no way out of that place.
I would hope so.
All right.
So now we got
Back
Drakthar
over
cornered.
on the other side of town. They're pinned. They're stuck in place. And the party is in the tavern keeping an eye on them. Now, on the other side of the town, we see Potato McWhiskey trying to go to an authority in town and resolve this in a legal manner. Towards evening, the sun has set over those. The problem is that I realize the party gets here in the evening and all this is happening in the evening. And of course, the courts are closed by then. And so we now have the awkwardness of like, oh yeah, I forgot it's evening. The guard probably should have told you that. Well, I guess you're here near the courtrooms now. So what are you going to do about it? And the long and short is that Potato camps outside until the next day. So he can be first in line to talk to the council, the small claims court. In their eyes where they're like, I should probably get that. We're gonna skip. The inn is open pretty late, so there's enough, chatter in the room. And then by the time everything does quiet down, whoever goes to bed nearby is well rested or tired enough that they all sleep through the banging.
In the middle of the night, I'm gonna do something.
This right here, what we have is Cassian trying to annoy Drakthar just by banging on the door, and we sort of just let it slide. I think this is where I also make a mistake. Without so many people on the map, it's easy to forget that this is a full populated inn with other things going on, and no innkeeper is going to allow you just to bang on a door in the common room all day and all night just to annoy someone. Like, it's going to annoy the innkeeper, it's going to annoy the other patrons, it's going to be a problem. And I should try to enforce that you're in a society. If you're just banging on the door, you're going to get kicked out of the inn. You shouldn't even be allowed to rent this room because you started violence and rolled ones on your persuasion checks. But here we see everything begin to slide sideways as behavior that should not be acceptable and should be stopped is let go for funsies.
Cassian will get up. He'll go out here. Is there anyone out and about?
No. At the witching hour, 2 or something in the morning, it's quiet.
He'll go and walk over here. and pry the door.
It's locked, or I shouldn't say locked. It's barred. Since you've got a room here as well. There aren't like handles on the doors. They swing freely, and then there's like a little wooden thing that you can like latch over into a slot.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's just a pull push
chairs
thing.
out of the way.
Oh, Cassian.
Like try to jump on the door and like break. Yes, no one's seeing me though.
You're gonna try and break the door of the inn that you're staying in.
Yes, no one's seeing me though, and if it doesn't break, I'll just run back to my room.
So here's a problem that we run into a lot. And this is one of these slightly more modern versus ancient issues, is that especially in the very modern age where we watch like crime shows and blah blah blah, we have this sense that if something can't be proven, you can't get in trouble for it. Like if you break down a door, but there's no proof that you were the one to break it down, you kind of get away with it. And that's not necessarily how things have always been, and that's also not necessarily how things are today. If there's enough suspicion and everyone's like, yeah, that guy's probably the one that did it, you'll get in trouble for that shit. And especially in a time like this, where these people tried to kill this person. The party tried to kill Drakthar. The law enforcement was already called involved, and there's like banging on Drakthar's door all night. So if someone throws themselves against Drakthar's door and breaks down Drakthar's door, even if they manage to like run into their room before anyone comes out and sees it, they might not know which one of these party members it was, but it's gonna be this group. And the group is going to get in trouble. Maybe one person in particular will be singled out. Cassian is a pretty obvious choice. He's the biggest, he's the strongest, and he was sitting there banging on the door for a while. So even if there's not like concrete evidence, we don't need concrete evidence in this day and age. A lot more goes on just suspicion, word of mouth, eyewitnesses, and
Genius.
give me an athletics check.
22.
Great check. You smash down the door and tumble into Drakthar's room in the middle of the night while they're sleeping. I guess I'm gonna. You win initiative? I don't know. No. Well, I'll just give you advantage on initiative against them, but I think we need to roll.
Didn't expect it.
Immediately. So Drakthar throws down a fear spell. Cassian fails. Was going to run away anyway. Fear spell in this situation seems reasonable. It's not an offensive spell. In this, especially being used this way, it's more defensive. Drakthar's not killing anyone. They're just sort of getting people out of the room. I think that's a legitimate way to defend yourself in a town when your room is being burst in upon. In the morning to find that there's been some construction and Drakthar cursing at the person fleeing. And by the time Cassian returns, there's the half-orc bartender looking at you. And they're going to talk to you. Do you come back on in? It's a little quieter in the morning. Drakthar will just be sitting at the table next to their room, chilling. The night they say to Cassian,
Yes.
door in the middle of the night they say to Cassian, you there. Hold on, here we go. Did you break that door in the middle of the night? They say to Cassian.
Yes.
This is the third point at which Cassian and the party should be removed from this tavern. Like, just barred. And I don't know what it is, why it is that we didn't follow that path. That is the right thing to do. For so many reasons. It's the in-game right thing to do. Like, there's no reason the bartender would allow them to stick around. It serves our purposes of having the party coexist with Drakthar. Like, we would de-escalate the situation. The Drakthar is in this building. The party has to be outside of this building. They can like hang on the outside, but they can't be right next to Drakthar, or maybe they have to go somewhere else. Like, whatever it is, we want to like de-escalate and let the party stew in being next to Drakthar. And for at the third moment where it would make sense to kick them out of the tavern, we fail to do so. because the confrontation's so juicy and it's fun and it's interesting and it's great to see them try to screw with Drakthar and see them struggle with this. Like I'm enjoying it. I think the viewers are enjoying it. I think the players are enjoying it. But that nagging voice in the back of my head that says, DM, you should do the right thing, not the thing that's the most fun in the moment. You should do the thing that's best for the game, is being overridden, and that's a bad idea.
And I'll
hold out a hand.
How much gold do I owe you?
2 gold for repairs.
I'll give him 10 coppers of gold, or sorry, 10 coppers of silver, 100 coppers of gold.
Yes.
I'll go over to Roy. Roy, I need 2 gold.
Oh, I see how it is. He gives him 2 gold.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I pay the man.
And you're gonna have to find a new inn. I've had enough from you. Oh, thank God I did that. I forgot about that.
I nod, and I will step out.
But the rest of the party should have been kicked out too, right? It's not just you're the troublemaker. It's your whole group is troublemakers. The whole group should get out of here.
Outside of the inn, and I will place
But I
myself
didn't
here.
for some reason. Cool. Yeah, there are other inns that can be settled. So let's, we gotta do. We gotta do. Down. Or at least people behind. So we're back at Vasher. Is actually what he gets a little introduction to how the justice system works here. People come up with their complaints. They rule on it. It's pretty much just you make your argument, the judges make a ruling, the ruling gets enforced, and it doesn't go well for Vasher. Vasher is trying to do the right thing. He's trying to appeal to the lawful authority of the town. And he says things like, well, why can't you just kick them out of town and then we can deal with them? And the justice system is like, well, that's the same as murder. Like, if we're not going to let you kill them in the town, we're not going to kick them out so you can kill them outside of the town. This is how things work. Tough luck, buddy. And that's just how it goes. I'm sort of summarizing.
His grass. And I don't want my grass cut because he keeps going over the line, cutting down.
Okay, this is just an example. And anyone is free to state their opinion wherever they want. Him is asking us. All right, skip. Where's the end of that?
World. Is that not a bigger mission? What is the point?
We have no reason to.
Here we go. I wanted to get to
tonight,
where
kill him, and then get-
Vasher comes back to Cassian.
Question.
Not a 1.
Sympathetic.
They deserve.
Question. Did any of the counselors seem sympathetic?
No. Not a 1.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going scorched earth on this fucking
You can
town.
see that this is like a common problem that they must be having here, where you've got a legitimate beef with someone, and there's nothing you can do about it. You could have a situation where the bandits that just killed your brother are hanging out in this town, and you come across them, and you just have to abide by them while you're here, or you can just leave. But this is a very common problem that this place has, and this is how it must be. It's painful, but you can arrive back at the tavern with the rest of the party.
I'll catch him outside.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask him, how did it go, Vasher?
Curse this fucking land.
I broke.
Yes. It's a difficult world to navigate. And I think it's mostly difficult because not because the structure is actually difficult, but because of the unmet expectations. I think it would be fun to set a campaign in the same area, with this being the understanding of how the power structure works from the onset, and giving the characters and the players enough backstory to be like, yes, there are people who go out and rob people and then come into town and then sell the ill-gotten goods back to those people's family members, and you can't do anything about it. And you also have people who have done terrible things, and now they just live in town and influence, they send out their minions to do terrible things while they never leave town because they've got enough enemies that if they leave town, someone's going to come for them. And so now they just live in town and orchestrate evil deeds outside of town, and they're the real baddies, and they're using the town as security. And then you've got I think there would be, if you were introduced to that as like, this is the game setting in which our characters are playing, and you know these rules and you can take advantage of these rules too, I don't think this would be a frustrating setting at all. I think it would be a lot of fun, and I kind of want to do that.
Broke in his room last night.
Well, before you say that, I'll say, when we bring back current King Arnold, I will return at the head of a crusade. That I fucking swear right now.
I know.
Excellent moment from Vasher. Well done. You know, we got to solve the evils of this world. Let's go resurrect good King Arnold and then crusade the shit out of this evil hellhole.
I broke in his room last night. It's pretty easy to get through the doors. I don't know if you want to do that tonight, kill him, and then get out of here.
You know, if we'd kick the whole party out of the bar, the whole party would be having this conversation now.
Roy is right. Sometimes justice waits.
You think it's fate that we'll find him again?
The problem is, we have to deal with Drakthar. But
do you really?
They're not dumb. They're flaunting it openly in this town.
Yeah, they are.
They know they're untouchable, and if we do anything to touch them, we become persona non grata.
Yes.
We will also be dead.
Yes. It's beautiful. I love it.
Maybe we find Drakthar's, it doesn't seem like he's training them in the city. Maybe we go there and wait for him?
I think I have a similar idea. If Drakthar can recruit, so can we.
Great
we should
idea.
Start recruiting our own cult of justice.
Great idea.
Is a god, just like Ponos.
Hey,
we go around.
We have to keep our mind on the mission.
Am I part of this conversation?
No, it's
outside. I'll say to him, look, if we bring back Arnold, and Drakthar is indeed powerful enough to end the world, is that not a bigger mission? What is the point?
We have no reason to believe that Drakthar
Roy's going to make the best point the world's ever seen in just a moment.
Can actually end the world.
I mean,
this is a moron with a tentacle who I broke into last night.
Martha has descended from the heavens. Who knows what could be happening here? Maybe they are
pointed
just
at the
a
guy on the
crazy
street.
person.
Maybe he could be the end of the world. You know, we only know what we know, and I know that
Vasher will like
Arnold
instinctively reach for his sword, thinking he was being serious, but then realize that he was just making a point.
We need to either deal with him quick and be on our way, or
I thought Roy was going to make a good point. Clearly, I don't remember.
Every day that we wait, things back home get worse and worse.
You're right, but
this is the conversation I was hoping the party would be having. I'm just a little bummed that the whole party's not together for it.
I've overlooked so much evil.
There's no justice in this land. Why don't we just sneak in there tonight, and you can deal it yourself, then we can get on. Keep going.
Okay, but we should make a plan for escape. A very solid plan.
One of the other things I was really hoping for is that the party would be in a position where they'd used a lot of their resources, that they would be needing to take a long rest in this town. Instead, they ended up taking a long rest in the other town, and so they arrived here full on resources. However, if the party was arriving in this town down on HP and down on spells, which was really the dream, then they would be in a situation where they would have to chill for a while. And they'd have to regain their resources, and they couldn't, cause a ruckus and then take off.
I know.
While the two of you are outside talking, Roy, you will be included. And they're like talking amongst themselves and pointing over, and one of them, finally brave enough, steps forward and goes, hi, excuse me, you must be Roy in the Waystars? This little scene right here is reminding us that the people don't hate Drakthar.
It's me, I'm Roy.
We have heard so much about you. There have been people coming through town for weeks now talking about Roy and the Waystars. And then, Saffron, Saffron Shadowwalker, one of my favorite heroes, came through as well. These people know the heroes. These people tell stories about the heroes. The heroes of this land are the like pop stars and idols and movie stars and TV actors and actresses of the age. You know, you get your signatures from your favorite heroes. Maybe someone always plays a bad guy, but like they're still cool. They still do epic things. Maybe some innocents get killed in the process, but whatever. It's not a big deal. They're still really cool, powerful creatures and monsters and heroes and villains. And like, we got to collect all of their autographs. So that's what we're trying to, you know, these people, they know about the heroes that are coming through. They hear about them. They're excited to meet them. They're coming to meet Roy. She said that she helped you defeat an entire village that was under attack of bandits.
Yes, indeed. It was, oh friends, it was quite the battle. Roy will tell the story in detail.
They listen, excited. The bard seems to be taking like mental notes as they go along. And one of the followers will eventually pep him and be like, and is it true? Is it true that you're on your way to get a scroll of resurrection to bring back some great king? Someone let it slip earlier, and that story's out because that's a juicy story.
That's right. King Arnold.
Wow. Where's the scroll?
Well, we don't quite know, but
wait,
we're on
sorry.
a mission to find it.
When they ask that, I fucking elbow Roy in the ribs.
Good job, Nick. Well done. That's one of those things that would be easy for Roy to say a whole bunch of stuff, and then for Nick to be like, hold on, I wouldn't have let him say that. It's always a tough spot. It's always tough when someone's like, oh, that's what happens. I preemptively stopped that from happening, even though I wasn't really sure it was going to happen until Nick is seeing the future. He's paying attention to the conversation, and he's looking down the line, and he's interrupting Roy. And I just wish all my players would interrupt people rather than saying, all right, well, 30 seconds ago, now that you're done telling me what you're doing, I don't think I'm going to like where it's going, so I'm going to preemptively stop that. This is a much better way of going around it.
Just so he knows not to tell the location of the fucking scroll.
Roy will look at you and be like, oh yeah. We
Does anyone appreciate that I gave Vika their own chair? Could have put Vika anywhere. No, but we carefully positioned to be on a chair.
We don't quite know yet. It's quite the mystical item known from legends, but we are on our way to find it, and it might take some more time, but that's our purpose. That's why we're out here.
The bard will step forward and, sort of cutting you off, says, would you mind if I joined with you? Sounds like... Now here's our next major NPC that we're hoping to introduce to the story. We've talked a lot about Age of Heroes. We've talked a lot about wanting the party to be heroic and to be sort of these figures that move through the world that have large reputations. And having a bard come along with them is going to be a way to keep that reputation building. We had a little bit of this earlier where they were, I can't remember her name, Dara, was it? They were walking with Dara. They were escorting her from one place to another, and she had seen the Battle of Flicker Red Scale, and she acted as their bard, telling their story around. And then Saffron acted as their bard after the last engagement and came to Bellwind to be like, hey, everybody, look at these great heroes. They owe me money. And now, because Dara's not around, Saffron might not stick around. Now is an appropriate time, level 4, where a traveling bard joins the party and gives them a hand. The other thing to do with this traveling bard is to sort of, the party had talked a little bit about wanting an entourage, wanting some recruits. I think having their holy quest collect followers who can assist them is really great. And one of the problems with followers is that you don't want them to actually be combat followers. When you have an NPC who fights with your team, if the NPC ends up winning the game for you, then it's not very much fun. When the NPC does well in battle, that's not always that great. It's a little bit great, but if like they start to overshadow the players, then it becomes like the DM playing with themselves and the players are weird side characters. It's not a good vibe. But having a pure support character who never inflicts any offense, but like is there with a healing spell, or is there with bardic inspiration, or is there with restful sleep, or whatever it's called, Song of Rest. Having a full support bard who can travel with the party and who can buff the PCs but never attack or nerf the enemies is a great way to have a follower who joins the party and never overshadows the party, because then you're always happy when they heal you. You're always happy when they buff you. You're always happy when they get rid of your debuffs, but they never steal the spotlight. And here is our bard that we are introducing the party so that they can have a follower who they've earned, who can then also spread their word for them, and who can give the party a little bit of support without, taking over the combat stage. Like an interesting story. I would be happy to, I would love to come along and record it for my own tales.
A bard who wants to, yeah. I look over at Sturmir. I'm like,
Sturmir's silent. He's speechless.
Wait. No, really? Wait.
No, you're good. You're good.
no, you're good.
I think I know this is a big deal for Roy, so I don't want to say no to him, but it is a terrible idea. So
it's a great idea.
I think I sort of like stare into my beer and just like shake my head a little bit, but it's only partially because I can live with it.
You see, I mean, I would be honored to have you with me. Obviously,
thank you so much. I can't wait. Oh, okay. Well,
obviously,
I like to work out of this
before-
town, so I'll just our tavern. So I'll come by, and when you leave, well, then maybe we can take off together. Where are we headed? How many supplies do we need? Are we going upriver or downriver? Because if we're gonna go through the desert or the Badlands, I'm gonna need some extra gear.
Yeah,
We're going through the
Here, I'm hoping to like just over talk Roy to the point that he just acquiesces.
Badlands. I say to him.
Great.
Yeah, Roy was going to, but he can't say no. He's so down. While he has the people here though, wait, is that? I'm sorry, I'm confused. Is Drakthar sitting at
You
that
guys
table?
are keeping an eye on Drakthar,
Yeah,
right?
we're keeping it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if he's like at the table.
Now, this is another important thing here. When the NPC said, in front of Drakthar, you are looking for a scroll of resurrection, and the party was like, yes, we are, but I'm not going to tell you where it is. This is setting up the next leg of the Drakthar storyline. You see, Drakthar has a plan. And in a moment, Drakthar is going to, proselytize these people. But the long and short and long of the plan is that Drakthar wants to bring some strong powers back into this world. They mentioned earlier maybe summoning Ponos, God of Suffering. Here, the plan is going to be a little bit more clarified. They want to resurrect Drexel, a powerful mage of ages past. And sitting at a table with the party, who is apparently after a scroll of resurrection, now allows us to put Drakthar and the party on a course where they are possibly going to interrupt or bump into each other over and over again. If Drakthar can get out of the city, or if the party leaves them behind, or, now we're in a situation where Drakthar is going to be racing the party, hopefully, if all things go well, to the Great Pyramid to try and get the scroll first, or following the party to the Great Pyramid to try and snatch the scroll out from underneath them. And this will hopefully put us on a path where we get to have at least one more, maybe two or more encounters with Drakthar, and we can kind of have this one reoccurring NPC that we get to battle over and over again. And the party, I don't know if they picked up that Drakthar just heard that they know about the party's plan to get a scroll of resurrection, but it falls really, really neatly into Drakthar's plans. Yeah, he's totally at the table.
While all these people are around me, I'm just gonna point to Drakthar, and I'm gonna be like, "Do you guys want to hear another story of ours?"
We've already heard Drakthar's stories about how Ponos, god of suffering, is one of the 2 guardians of humanity, how they help with us poor people who are at the bottom of society dealing with our problems. And I've actually made a couple of donations to Drakthar. Hi, Drakthar. They're fans of the heroes. Drakthar, kind of a hero. I mean, kind of a villain, but also kind of a hero a little bit. They come into town. They've been proselytizing here for at least a week or more. The party doesn't know what these people know about Drakthar, right? The party's here keeping an eye on her, but they have no idea what Drakthar has said to these folks. And now, earlier we had seen that the party wasn't, getting a good reception from the bar, and now we're seeing that the bar, the people in the bar actually like Drakthar. And maybe there's a reason. Maybe Drakthar's got a couple of good lines. Maybe Drakthar's actually got something of value or interest to stay.
Okay, Roy still wants to tell their story from their perspective, including the, mutilated and murdered children, and he wants to make the story as harrowing as possible.
And you'll get interrupted as you start to tell it. And Drakthar will be like, that's not even how... These people showed up to my recruiting grounds and just started killing. They killed my acolytes. They killed my summoned creatures. They killed the gifts of Ponos. These are monsters.
They did, though.
They're murderers. They see the token of my suffering, the symbols of my pain, the hardship I have suffered, like raising the tentacle into the air. This is what I've given up in order to make myself a better person. This is what I've given up to help other people ease their suffering. And they've done nothing but end immediately the light of life.
You are disgusting, and you are a liar and a child murderer, and you murdered the children, and you killed them, and transformed them, and then also murdered them. So, I'm just putting this out there, guys. This guy kills children, He takes them away, kidnaps them, and then he kills them.
I train the youth. I do not sacrifice children. Not unless they've been given to me to be sacrificed.
Right, we got to make it clear that Drakthar does sacrifice people. But he's not sacrificing children unless they've been given to me specifically for the purpose of sacrifice. But, I don't just capture children and sacrifice them. I take my offerings as, we're about to lay down some Drakthar is actually making a little bit of sense stuff. And so we need to pepper it with, let's also remember that you can be a bad person even if everything that you say makes sense. You can come up with some very good sounding reasons to do a lot of very evil things. And sometimes, you can make a bad idea sound kind of good. And if you just look at, oh, wait, but the actual idea is bad at the end of the day. The things that you're doing are bad, even if all of your justifications sound good. And so we're like, yes, Drakthar does murder children. But that's not their jam. That's not the core principle of what they're doing. Let's hear what Drakthar is up to.
Well, that's worrying in of itself. I'd just like to... You've heard the big stories, and I will reference some stories from this region of heroes that have stopped the evil. Who do you think sounds like who here? What do you think what part of the story do you think he sounds like? I say, motioning at also the tentacle arm. What does he look like? And what do we sound? I ask at the bar directly. From the stories that you tell, what vibe are you getting?
What? I actually have on my morning dog walk, I came up with a really good backstory for Drakthar about how Drakthar was born to a poor family who had suffered a lot as a child and had a withered arm that was useless. And they prayed to the god of suffering to ease their suffering, and transformed the Ponos transformed Drakthar's weak, useless, shriveled little arm into this great tentacle. And this great tentacle is actually a useful implement. And
I had come up with a really good like story arc for them as a youth and how they came to be who they are and how the god of suffering interacts on this level. And we say god of suffering, but really it's god of like god who is sympathetic to the suffering of people, god who is sympathetic to these things, a god who realizes that like through hardship there is personal growth, and like hardship, it can be called suffering. And maybe like god of suffering is like a negative spin on the god who helps people through hard times, or the god who recognizes that personal pain is an agent for personal development. Someone in the Discord had made a comment about how a cleric of Ponos who runs a gym and is all about like, the angle of Ponos here is that no pain, no gain. You got to like do those reps. You got to really like make the muscles burn in order to make them grow. And I think there's a lot of validity there. And I had a great little story set up about how Ponos recognizes the pain and suffering that this person's going through and helps them and like grants them powers, but then also in the process like, I will make your arm better, but it's going to be an ugly tentacle arm because you're going to be improved, but like now you have to suffer through this other hardship. Or I'm going to improve this other aspect of you, but in exchange you're going to like look different. And I actually had worked it out really, really well. And I got home from my dog walk and I got distracted with breakfast and feeding the dog and doing some dishes. And then when I sat down to write it out, I couldn't remember the details. And it was really good. And I was super excited for it. And it flowed so well. And then when it came to time to write it all down, I had forgotten like just enough key details. And I still don't remember them. But for a good hour there, Drakthar had an amazing backstory that made Ponos be super, super relatable. And I lost it. Well, I mean, what you see in this episode is the weak version of why Ponos is cool, why Drakthar is actually awesome, and why you should worship the god of suffering. I mean, the way that you explain it makes it sound pretty bad. But what Drakthar was saying earlier sounded pretty reasonable, actually. Well, why don't you tell him what you were saying earlier? Drakthar will get up and dust off her robes and place her floppy tentacle on the table.
That's rude.
Suffering. We all suffer. It is our lot
Especially
in this
the
world.
kids you killed. A lot of kids.
Malchus, the creator of humanity, partnered with many other gods, and Ponos was one of them. Of all people, of all creatures, that is the lot of humanity to suffer the most. The cow in the pasture knows not of its fate. It knows no anxiety. It knows no fear.
I lean over to like someone at another table and this guy killed a lot of kids, by the way.
The cow is ignorant and oblivious. Blah, blah, blah. All right, we're going to skip ahead for a little bit. Drakthar talks, gives some lessons. These people talk. There's some back and forth. It's pretty good. It's good enough that you should just watch it. I don't actually have any additional commentary on it. But this is sort of where things pick up again.
Everyone's suffering, and I think I asked him to, how exactly do you intend to do that? Because I think his plan is to... I know, he was talking about bringing back Drexel the Lich, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was talking about bringing back Drexel the Lich, and then I think we were coming in because you were talking... she.
Yeah.
And you were talking...
As he makes that statement, I stand up angrily from my chair and walk over to the bar to get a drink.
They want
Right about here.
Listen to mine.
No. I have a lot of people here who actually want to listen to my.
Or
What's
we're
the
done
crowd's
listening to
reaction?
your story.
board right
All
here,
right.
Cassian.
Yeah, Cassie.
So the party gets into a fight. Now again, when Cassian showed up in the bar, the bartender maybe should have thrown him out. But hey, maybe the bartender's too busy talking with someone. Maybe the bartender's too busy talking with Steermere to notice that Cassian has walked right in, because Cassian just like walks in, goes up to Drakthar, and combat ensues. It's only 15 seconds, so that is a more forgivable offense.
Dean says we're done listening to your story.
I think you were at this point, Vasher, when that happened. So I think it's at and this now point, we get the combat, which is unfortunate. Okay. Because when the party engages in combat in this town, especially in front of so many witnesses, it's going to affect their reputation. We've seen that you can be a child murderer, and you can be a bandit sacrificer, and you can summon monsters from other planes, and you can commune with what most people would think is an evil god. And you can be accepted in society as long as you do your own shit outside of these walls. And now we're going to see that the party who frees slaves and is trying to resurrect a good king, and who's doing their best to bring justice wherever they go, is going to be seen as monsters and evildoers and villains for enacting what most of us would see as pretty legitimate justice, or at least vengeance, within the confines of the town. And the heroes are leaving the path of heroism and becoming villains with this action. And that is not the story that we had expected, nor that we were going for, but it is the story that we ended up with. And so now we must refocus, because our party of evildoers.
Okay. I'm going to be doing my fighting spirit, which is going to give me advantages on all these attacks. So I'm taking that off, and I'm getting extra 5 temporary hit points.
Okay. And fight ensues. The Cassian beats the shit out of Drakthar. Some other stuff goes down. We get some missed attacks. We get a Vard's Black Tentacles. Great spell. And right here. What you can't see, I'm going to go back a little bit so we can get a slightly bigger version of the map, and I want to point something out to you. Do we not actually get... Oh, God, I know there's a better version somewhere. Here we go. So let's look at this map right here. This is where the battle is going to take place. This is Drakthar's room right here. This is a series of toilets. This is somebody else's bedroom over here, right? I want you to remember, this is the front of the staircase. It goes up and then it goes above. That's why it's kind of fading out above the toilets. Okay. So the problem that we run into, Drakthar gets hit. Whoops. Back. Okay.
That's a dex.
So people fail their saves, people get restrained.
Does that
And now we're trying to figure out, the DM, me, is trying to figure out where exactly to place this ring of tentacles, and where exactly Drakthar is going to move on their turn. And obviously we want to hit the 3 party members here, but we also want to block off any other routes. And we want to give Drakthar some cover. Now the spell says, when a creature enters the affected area for the first time on a turn, or starts its turn there, Drakthar is going to be in the area. They don't enter the area, and they're not starting their turn in the area. So Drakthar is not affected by the tentacles. At least that's my reading of this. What we should have done is have Drakthar lay down the tentacles in this zone and then move into the bathroom or move into this bedroom. And I thought about it. I also thought about like staying here so you don't provoke an opportunity attack. And that would be great, because then you get into the bathroom, you shut the door, people can't see you, or at least you walk around the corner, you're unobservable, you can cast spells. Anyone that wants to come to get you has to like cross through the tentacle area. And I think we ended up having Drakthar not do that, which is a huge mistake. In order so that they could keep an eye on what's happening. That seemed sort of reasonable in the moment, is that Drakthar is pretty good at doing their things. They got a tentacle, they can drain life. Maybe you want to stay so you can see what's going on, or at least see the movement of other folks. Doesn't go very well. Well, earn or
no, just let him do it. Hold on, I'm thinking.
You don't have advantage anymore, do you?
Don't have advantage anymore. I shouldn't. No.
Great way to hit too.
Would have hit.
Yeah.
And there's one. That's not. So we end up here. This is a tough spot. Now, this guy's trying to cast a spell. The chairs don't matter. The tentacles might matter. This probably doesn't matter very much. This person does matter. Whatever. There's like one. There's a little bit of cover here. Never mind. Chairs are all below tentacle range.
And the giant tentacle.
The chairs, those are all below tentacle height.
It missed, but I would like to argue.
Steerman, did you have a shield out? I don't think you're wearing your shield. Your AC is 11 right now, sir.
Can I just say, it's still in that token square? It still clips it? Would we really not count this?
But you've not minus.
Oh, well,
yeah,
you get plus 2 to your AC for the person. Yeah, so it doesn't miss. Okay. Yeah, it brushes past this woman right here who...
I want...
You guys. Movement. Where are we gonna go? I think we're done here.
Wait, hang on. Moot's got advantage as an attack because of guiding bolt.
That already. Does he?
I think that's what guiding bolt does.
Can you read it?
That's advantage.
Good job, Nick. Or
Roy, make me a dexterity saving. So, Drakthar drops to 1 HP, half an HP. I don't know. This is one of those points where, now that we know the Drakthar is taking this damage, maybe I should have moved them. I saw them having like 20-something HP, and so I left them out in the room for a moment. And then as I was ending the turn, we applied more damage, and maybe I should have realized here that, okay, with this extra damage, Drakthar would move into a different location. This was a bad play. Should have moved Drakthar into the bathroom. It would make sense. Sort of fits like the filthy evil monster vibes. Drakthar's got false life where you can gain temporary HP. There's a bunch of useful things that could have happened. There's no escape from the bathroom. There's no windows or anything, but at least you could go in, bar the door, move some spells around. There could have been some more interesting play, and it doesn't happen here.
Can I just...
First, you have to make the dex save. Make 3 down. All right. So, Roy starting his turn in the zone. So, Roy has to... Roy takes damage. Roy takes 3d6 damage for starting his turn in the zone. Which in this situation knocks him unconscious. Bummer for Roy. Vasher.
22.
So it's going to be a DC 11.
Natural 20, yeah.
Come on.
Conscious and dex save. Blah, 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 blah. Vasher.
Annoys him and then, gives him disadvantage.
So when a creature, Vika, dex save, or... Alright, Vika comes up to Drakthar, blah, blah, blah. Vasher fails their save, is restrained, can't move, but that doesn't mean they can't reach Roy here. And now Vasher's in a bit of a spot, because Roy will take 3d6 damage on the start of the next turn automatically. If that 3d6 comes out to an 11, which is a 50% chance of doing so, or higher, Roy dies. So Vasher has to decide how much of their lay on hands to give to Roy. Because if it's only 1 point, Roy comes back to consciousness, and if they take 12 damage, then they die. So Roy is going to need as much HP as possible just to not insta-die next round, because Roy's HP is trash. And in the end, Vasher decides to, I think, give full HP back to Roy. which uses Vasher's whole turn, which is great action economy there on Drakthar's part. Roy gets to live to fight another day. And Vasher compels duels Drakthar. Is that right?
Make a wisdom saving throw 13 or higher.
They're gonna have high wisdom.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
My
They are
turn?
compelled. The people compelled duel means that they can't move more than 30 feet away from you. Luckily, the toilet is still within 30 feet. That's where we're going.
The people go.
Right. Citizens flee. Everyone's running. When the citizens flee, means the guards are being alerted. We come back to Cassian, who is restrained.
I'm gonna throw my
Oh.
I'll take that off in a second. I have an axe. Can I grab the axe on my side and throw it at him?
I suppose you have disadvantage on the attack roll.
It's fine. I'm gonna use a fighting spirit here, so I will add 5 more temporary hit points.
He just fall unconscious. Drakthar goes down. Now here we got a problem. Well, we got a lot of problems. In between the previous encounter with Drakthar and this encounter, I had leveled Drakthar a little bit higher. And one of the things that I did not do was find a way to improve their AC. Let me pull up their character sheet right here. Right. Drakthar is chilling with 12 AC. They've got 11 dex, so it's just like a rubbery hide that they get their AC from. And in designing a reasonable monster that is supposed to be not quite a boss, but like, a significant character, the downside that I've done here is keeping the AC low. A higher AC would have served this unit a little bit better. We also just got super lucky with some epic damage rolls on Drakthar pretty early on. And here, in a few moments, we're going to just keep it playing while I mute it. The party's going to walk up and just outright kill Drakthar. Drakthar's just going to be deadsies. And that makes me sad. I was really hoping to see more Drakthar here. I was really hoping to see this be a reoccurring NPC. I had sort of spent some time, planned out their backstory, planned out what they were going to do, figured out they've got 2 more bases. There's one base where they're training these acolytes. Like there's the school, there's the recruiting grounds, there's the school, and then there's like the summoning area where that they're putting together. It's still under construction, and that's where like the final rituals to summon these people were gonna be from. I had like a plan for Drakthar to either follow them or the party to chase Drakthar as they're both heading to the pyramid. I had worked out like a nice big storyline, and Drakthar was gonna end up being like the main bad guy that they kind of run in parallel with. And it's always really, really hard to make that stuff happen because the party always kills the bad guy as soon as they have an opportunity to. And they had an opportunity to do so here. And the social pressure of don't do it in a city was not enough. And so the party murdered Drakthar. That's a problem. Now, there's fallout. There's a lot of fallout from this, and our characters haven't seen the fallout yet, and they won't see it for some time, actually. Word spreads. Before the party even arrived in town, the town knew who the party was. So when this group of heroes, this group of easily identifiable foreigners, murders people in town, starts fights, causes all these problems, this word will spread. And other towns that the party ends up at are going to maybe hear about this before the party arrives. And the party might find certain doors are closed to them in the future. Now, one of the things that happens shortly after this is that the party gets the fuck out, right? They immediately throw down some fog clouds. They do expeditious retreat so they can run really quickly. They go grab their mounts, but not their stuff. And they get out of town as fast as possible. Then they meet up with some other folks. They send a message back into town with some neutral people for plaques to meet them, and it takes a little bit of time. And then the party rolls really, really well on encounter checks and runs into no encounters and gets to the next town right away. So, the town is maybe 5 days away. The party gets there in 7 days because they like travel 6 days. 6 or 7 days. They travel a day away, they send message back, they wait for plaques to come up, and then they get to the next town. So by the time they get to the next town, the word hasn't quite reached the next town. So they can come into the next town relatively easily. We'll get to that in the next session. Not super easily. There are people there who know what's going on, but like the town in general doesn't know what's going on. However, if and when the party returns to another town, they come back to Bellwind especially, or they go to Abelar, or if they're gone from the next town up the road for a little while and then they return to it, or if some time passes and then they try to get to, the dwarven city all the way up the river, the party's going to find that doors are closed to them. That Drakthar, the child sacrificer, demon worshipper, and attempted summoner of Drexel, is allowed in town and welcomed with open arms, whereas the paladin, the mage, the cleric, and the bodyguard of good King Arnold, who are trying to set the world on a righteous course and defeat evildoers and defeat the person who would summon Drexel, the evil lich, back into the world, is locked out of cities and are viewed with suspicion. And even though this is the Age of Heroes, the longer name for this age is the Age of Heroes and Villains, and will be viewed as untrustworthy, antisocial, evil, chaotic, and not people who you can be safe around, right? Because Drakthar might be a child murdering, demon worshipping lich summoner, but when Drakthar's in town, they chill the fuck out, man. They chill out, they hang out, they recruit, but they don't fight. They don't kill. If you're sitting next to Drakthar in a bar, you can feel safe. You can feel like you're not about to be killed. But these people, if they don't like you, they're going to kill you wherever you are. These people are pure chaos and pure carnage who have no respect for the society or the rules of society and are at this point, they're illegal aliens and serial killers. And that is going to be their reputation. That's the reputation that they've created for themselves right now. And that is going to be a hard pill to swallow. One of the things that I like to do, as if you're a viewer, I'm sure you've seen, is do a lot of perspective work and be like, yeah, well, this person seems evil, but here's their reasoning, and maybe this reasoning's legit. Or you're in this other place and they view things differently. Like, here's an event. Here's 3 different ways to look at this event. Which one is true? Which one do you want to be true? And I like to play with the, your reality is just a matter of your perspective. A lot of moral relativity too. If you look at other campaigns like Frozen Frontier, the Scrags at first seem like evil, and then maybe they're not so bad, but then they're maybe evil again. And then depending on the perspective you take and the amount of information you know, then maybe the Scrags were not bad creatures altogether. Maybe they're just trying to, defend themselves against monsters, or maybe the Scrags were the monsters, or maybe they started out good and then they became evil. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can view things, right? That's one of the things I enjoy about this game, is it allows for so much like point of view work, and it's really easy for us to see the world from the hero's point of view. That's the point, right? We're following these characters, the main characters of our storyline, but they have done some actions here which will make them be viewed not as heroes, but as villains, as monsters, as sociopaths, as serial killers. It's going to be hard for them to manage. And I don't know how that's going to work. Luckily, they're heading away from the desert, generally speaking. So maybe this reputation won't follow them for that long. Maybe it will beat them to wherever they go next. We'll see. But the party's inevitably taken a path of villainy here. And they've already not got along in this land. And they've already not seen eye to eye with this people of this land. And now they're going to be not just distrusting this land, but the land is going to be outright distrustful of them. And it's going to have a very strong effect on their ability to travel and communicate and enter safe towns, even resupply. There's going to be a taint on the party now. And I don't know if that's going to be fun. I'm a little concerned about it. It's fun to play through the consequences of actions. But it's kind of shitty to feel like you're on the side of righteousness and that like you're doing the good things. And you probably are, because you're going around killing demon summoners and enslavers and child killers. Like, you're doing good things. But is it fun to be doing good things and feel like you're doing good things, but also feel like a complete outcast? Is that going to be an enjoyable game experience? I think the answer to is, it depends on how we play it out. It can be played out in a shitty way. It could be played out in an interesting way. It might even be able to be played out in a fun way. I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to go. But the death of Drakthar is sad for me because I wanted to see more Drakthar. It's fine, whatever. It's sad for the party because now they're the bad guys, according to the locals. And it's going to present some interesting challenges. Now, in the meantime, the party is moving on. We're leaving Bellwind. They're going to Scalesvale. They run into some people on the road. They get plaques to get their stuff back. I don't think there's anything else here that needs to be talked about. Right? I think this is just on the road.
15. Can you give 5 to him?
Buying rations. Yeah, they run into a caravan because they didn't have any food or supplies. They do some trading. They learn about some locations. They see some mountains and volcanoes, which I got the names of those volcanoes now. Thank you very much. The biggest one is Gaia. The second one is Magna. And the last one is Licinia.
Gonna sit here and we'll do scouting parties basically. I think
We're gonna split the party.
You're the best person to do that because
Basher takes his horse and goes back to wait for plaques. The party splits a little bit. It doesn't really matter. Well, I gotta go home, see if my family's still there.
That's right. Family's important. But think about the offer if you ever change your mind. Let me give you a hand with those camels, and I'll help him lead these animals away.
Plax wants to go north. The rest of the party wants to go up the river. There's some back and forth. There's some conversation. There's some mechanics worked out. I don't think it matters too much right here.
Okay.
Save a man's life.
Maybe more.
Priceless. Save a man's life.
Okay.
Well, up the river we go. Yeah.
Shit.
Natural 20. No encounters on the way.
Yeah, but it should also be like heroic. Like a little. That's the story.
We come into Scalesvale
in the night sky that will guide you.
What is it?
Oh yeah, they try and figure out their name. We spend like 20 minutes trying to figure out their character's new name. Session today, and we're gonna start with Steermere this time.
Yes.
Steermere, let's do a little bit of reflection work. I feel like you have grown a lot. When you started this campaign, you didn't trust these moneyed individuals who came from power. You were kind of looking down on them. There was a lot of chafing. But in the last, over the last couple of weeks, I feel like Steermere has really found a way to sort of blend with these people. You even just gave money to the paladin You took the kid to church. What's going on with Steermere? How is
Well,
he?
listen, okay, I know.
Those are some good questions, all right? Good job, DM. You've really noticed the changes in that character, and you called him out really well, and you did a good job of underscoring how Steermere started off as a grumpy, distrustful man who hated all the moneyed classes, and is now, like, really cozying up to the moneyed classes and the powerful individuals here. Way to notice character development, Neal.
I know he was a little bit crotchety when this first started, but you got to remember, right? Steermere lived on that boat. The only people he had in his life, like all of his friends, were essentially the people that worked on that boat, and they're all dead or taken into slavery, depending on who survived. But they're probably all dead. And here we got these sort of three uppity noble types who are acting like, oh, we must fulfill our quest and, holier than thou and all that. But
blah blah blah, whatever. Nick gives an answer. On the front line. You've been a brave...
Bonding.
Nice. Let's see what else the DM has to say. They're very wise words. Cassian.
Yep.
You've been a brave warrior. You've been on the front lines. And this session sort of challenged your battle courage in unusual ways. You had to stay your blade, not fight someone. You had to resort to, like, stalking people and tapping on their door and annoying them. And then, even though you were hit by the fear spell, you also sort of did want to run away from that situation because you were put in an awkwardness where your battle courage wasn't a viable tool. How does that sit with Cassian when he there's a problem so direct that he can't actually fight properly? That was an alright question. It's a good
really
concept, but
him.
poorly executed.
This whole session's been hard for him because Cassian already let this guy go once, and now he sees that the entire law isn't going to work with him. However, you can't just attack when there's 30 people around. You can't just do things without your party's, acknowledgement.
Yeah. Steermere, but all the damage to this guy. You did essentially all the damage to this guy. I think there was a... all right. Roy, next question. You were knocked unconscious immediately without being able to do anything. And now the Waystar name is
sullied.
Sort of sullied and tarnished. And yet, I still get the feeling that Roy is maybe happier now than he was at the beginning of the session, despite facing what, level 1 Roy would have thought were terrible losses, especially the loss of name. How's Roy? Rate point DM. Roy started off scared and afraid and just wanting to go home and not having a good time at all. And now that his name has been sullied and terrible things have happened to him, he's like actually happier and having a good time. And that's a pretty drastic change for that character. Roy changed. I mean, it's been slow and subtle, but like now that you can see that he's actually having a good time while fighting Drakthar and while going through traumatic event after traumatic event. He's grown. He's developed. Is it PTSD or is it character development between the beginning of the session and this last fight in Bellwind?
So Roy is very torn this entire session because on the one hand, he was reveling in the attention and the praise he was getting from the people of this town. And he was truly feeling like he was becoming a hero. But in the back of his mind was, especially this was shown to him when he ran into Drakthar, was the traumatic things he had gone through so far to get this fame and get to this point, and the horrors that he had faced. And I think the party's Vasher and Cassian's like determination to do what's right here kind of swayed him to stick with the party rather than the others that he saw.
Don't care anymore. It all happened. You wanted, yeah.
And was to do what's right.
And last but not least, we have Vasher. Let's see what we have to say to Vasher.
Definitely least.
Yeah. You wanted justice, and then you were going to delay justice, and then you couldn't delay the justice any longer, and that all happened in the span of like 10 hours. Does Vasher have impulse control problems?
Well, I think you will recall that it wasn't Vasher that.
It might not have been my finest question asking, but it's a good point. You know, how can you? Maybe the point needed to be expanded upon. How can you call yourself a paladin of the god of justice when you are driven by strong impulses? Isn't justice the antithesis of following your gut and reacting according to whatever your strongest momentary impulse is? Isn't that the path of vengeance?
Killed Drakthar. That was Cassian. He snapped, and he was the one who walked in there and absolutely cleaved her down. I was just going along with it. I was happy to figure out another plan, but if we had to kill her then and there, I'm in. But honestly, Vasher, this whole time in this godforsaken land, has felt like his, here's how I'll describe it.
Well, that's it. That's it for the director's commentary for episode 7. If you want to know how these people feel about these things, you can go watch the episode on Save or Die on YouTube. And that'll be it. We will be back later today in probably about 2 hours and 15 minutes or something like that for episode 8 of the Lazarus Expedition, if all goes according to plan, which it doesn't always. And yeah, that's that. So we'll catch you for the next one. See you next time. Bye-bye.